On the Jacob Buehrer Show today, I'm happy to have on Miss Churchley. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Awesome. How's your day going?
Great. I'm in Cape Canaveral, Florida, looking at the ocean and looking at Cape Canaveral, where they shoot off the rockets from my deck in my condo.
Awesome.
Yeah, very
Awesome.
much fun.
Well, my first question isn't so much a question, but tell us a little bit about your background. Of course, your dad was the first American in space. He was also the oldest man to walk on the moon. He takes that title, Apollo 14, which he was walked on the moon with Edgar Mitchell, if I'm
Yeah,
correct on that.
that's correct. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about, yourself, your background, your family.
Well, my father was in the Navy, and for most of our growing up, he was on some aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean. And when he was able to not have to do that anymore, then he went into flying and went to test pilot school and became a test pilot. And my definition of a test pilot is a person who gets into a brand newly created airplane, a jet, flies it to see what's wrong with it. That doesn't sound like a really cool job, but that's what Daddy did. And he made it through it, and all was good. But then 1959, there was an offer sent out to all test pilots. Did they want to be an astronaut? And so there were about 500, 600 men that tried out. They wouldn't take women. This was 59. And he became an astronaut. My sisters and I were out riding bicycles in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and we saw Daddy's car in the driveway, and it was way too early for him to be home. And then all of a sudden, we heard our mother's whistle, which meant we had to come home. So here's Daddy sitting in the living room, and Mother is next to him, and he has an announcement to tell us. He said that he wasn't going to be working for the Navy anymore. He was going to be an astronaut. I was 12. My sister was 10. We're like, well, what's an astronaut, Daddy? He said, they're going to take me and put me into a spacecraft. They're going to send that spacecraft up into space, and I will come back to Earth safely. And this was all brand new. We didn't know what he was talking about. So we said, well, have a good trip, Daddy. Can we go out and play now? So
Wow.
that was the beginning of it. When Daddy went into space, I was in boarding school in St. Louis, Missouri. My mother and sisters were still in Virginia.
So you didn't get to see
And
the first launch.
this was brand new. NASA Kennedy Space Center was just nothing. There weren't any buildings. It was all trailers. There was no way anybody could, sit around and watch a launch. So my mother didn't go. She stayed in Virginia Beach and watched it on television. And I watched it on television in St. Louis, Missouri.
Wow.
Plus, Mother wasn't sure. She knew what would happen, but she didn't know for positive, because there had never been anybody doing this in America. And then 10 years later, Daddy went to the moon. And yes, he was the oldest astronaut, but he is still the first astronaut to have played golf on the
On the
moon.
moon. Yep. And what was that experience like? Because you would have been out of school by then, high school. Were you down for the launch for that?
Yes, we did go to that launch because I was, in college, but we did go to that launch, and it was spectacular. Of course, a Saturn V rocket, the largest rocket, at least was the largest rocket. There are now going to be more that are going to be bigger. But yes, it was very exciting. And then we came back to Houston and then when we were in Houston, when Daddy was going to the moon, because it took a couple of weeks, we would drive down to NASA, the Manned Spacecraft Center in Houston, just outside of Houston. And we could watch the whole thing on the big screen that NASA employees watched. So that was really fortunate for us that we got to do that. And then, of course, after Daddy came back, we, got invitation to go to the White House for dinner. President and Mrs. Kennedy were very lovely hosts and hostess. Ticker tape parade in New York City for John Glenn and Daddy and Gus Grissom.
And then from Indiana, by the way, where I'm from, Gus Grissom. We have an Air Force base named after him in Kokomo. Yep. They're actually doing some Space Force stuff. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, that's okay. No, it was our lives overnight changed.
You went from celebrities. I mean, literally, this was like the NFL of the 60s. I mean, this was right. This is like, nowadays how they announce new stadiums are going in for NFL teams in the city. When you are announcing that we're going to go to the moon, and President Kennedy said that, I mean, it was the sport of the 70s. Like, this is what everybody wanted to be.
Changed everything. Yeah. Everybody got their heads together and got it done before the end of the decade.
Right. And then if you don't mind me asking, so then the experience, what was it like when he was on the moon? Did you get to talk to him and call him when he was like, about to fall asleep in the, or what's the communication kind of like?
There was no communication back then for us to talk to Daddy. They hadn't developed that. They did that for the shuttle. We didn't have any communication. All I know this is silly, but all the stuff that was going on the moon was happening on the Earth early in the morning, or really late at night, early in the morning, 1, 2 in the morning. And I remember my father's father, Granddaddy Shep, came into my bedroom. It was 1:30 in the morning, and I was sitting up in bed. I was watching the TV about Daddy being on the moon, but I had fallen asleep. And so Granddaddy Shep taps me on my shoulder and says, "Laura, wake up. Your father is hitting a golf ball on the moon."
Wow. That'd be a remarkable experience.
I thought Granddaddy Shep had lost it. What is he talking about? Daddy's not hitting a golf ball on the moon, because he didn't tell us that that's what he was going to do. So I thought my grandfather was, "It's okay, Granddaddy. Are you sure?" And he goes, "Look, Laura, look, your father's hitting a golf ball on the moon." So that's kind of fun. And I have a replica of the golf club that Daddy used, but I don't think it will come across unless you want me to pull it out.
If you can't get it, it's okay.
Do you want me to do it?
Sure, we can give it a try.
Okay. I just thought about it, and it just happens to be right here. But there were 12 men that were on the moon. Yep. And they were issued this thing right here. Has a handle, and it all kind of interlocks.
So that was his golf thing then.
There's a string that goes through it that holds it all together. Okay. And normally it holds, where can you see it? There. It holds a shovel, and they can shovel stuff with it, or a probe. They could push it down into the moon surface, or a pitchfork. It would be on the end. But Daddy designed a golf club head.
Wow.
Do you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
And so this one's permanent. This is not, this is a replica. So I can't take it off. But you would take the golf club off and put on a shovel.
Now, do you know if he told NASA that he's going to be doing that or no?
What?
Do you know if he told NASA, "Hey, I'm going to play golf"?
Oh, he did.
He did. Okay.
No. He had to because of the weight. Even though he only had 2 golf balls and this, he still, can you see it? Why can't, there you go.
Yeah.
He still had to tell them.
Interesting.
No, he wouldn't. He's going to the moon. He's doing something that, normally people don't do very often every day.
Right.
So he did have to get permission.
Interesting. Well, that's fascinating. Thank you for showing us what it would have looked like. The next I'd like to ask a little bit is, so you got the chance and you went, about a year ago.
December
of 2022 or
No,
2021?
December 11, 2021.
Yep. Crazy. It's flying by.
I know.
What was the experience like? Take us through a little bit about that, especially the day of the launch. What's that experience like? If I recall in the video, Bezos says, Alan Shepard broke the barrier, and today we're breaking the barrier too. He said something like that, and then he shut the door. What's that experience like there,
Yeah,
And then
well,
being in space.
actually, I'm taking you back to June 2021. And I was here in Cape Canaveral celebrating the 60th year anniversary of Apollo 14. And there were a group of us at dinner one night, and they brought up Blue Origin and the new Shepard. And I hadn't heard of that before. And so we were talking, I was listening, learning what it was all about. And then I said, wait a minute, wouldn't it be neat if a real Shepard flew on the new Shepard? And that was in June of 2021. So in September of 2021,
this was after
when I received a call from Blue Origin asking me if I wanted to go on the new Shepard.
And you said yes.
Yes, I did. And I said, and he said, well, I thought you'd be a little more excited about this. I said, do you know how long I've been waiting for you to call me?
Wow. So
what happened is one of my crew members, Dylan Taylor, lives in Denver.
And he does a lot of space stuff for our guests who don't know. Lots of fun stuff. Very connected in the astronaut community.
He
creates a lot of cool stuff with his company.
He has a vision just like Jeff Bezos. It's amazing. But he called me up and asked if he and his wife could fly my husband and me to Van Horn, Texas for our launch. So that was a brilliant way for us to start our new adventure. So when we got to Texas, we were driven to a place that they called the Astronaut Village. And each of us had I have forgotten it's an RV, big silver RV. There's a
Airstream.
Thank you. There were 7 Airstreams in a little semicircle, which is each family stayed in one of those. So every morning we arrived on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Every morning we were on our way, for 3 miles to go to the training center at 6 a.m. We would eat lunch there, and then we would come back at 6:30 in the night. Now my husband was there. He was there with all the wives. So he was trying to figure out what to do. He had a fine time. But the training was really fun in that we went into a simulator that was identical to our spacecraft.
Wow.
Our mission was only 11 minutes. And so we practiced our mission probably 15 times a day. And the only thing that they could simulate was the sounds we were going to hear. So the launch would be loud. They even had earplugs fitted to us because the sounds were so loud.
Wow.
We heard the launch, and then we would hear when the booster was detaching itself from our spacecraft. And then the next thing we would hear, well, we also had mission control talking to us at the same, that they would be doing when we were in flight.
Interesting.
And then we would hear the is it called the drones that would pull the parachutes up. We would hear that. And then everything else would be kind of quiet. But that's all that we were hearing. And we put that to memory so that we would know what was happening when we did our real flight.
Wow.
And when we did our real flight, there was no big deal.
What was it like when you were in space on that flight?
It was wonderful. Oh my gosh.
What did you take with you to space?
What?
What did you take with you to space?
Oh, I took a ton of jewelry.
Wow.
And I took probably 75 flags that my father took to the moon.
Wow.
And so I'm waiting to travel to all these different countries so that I could give them these flags because they've been in space and been to the moon. Gosh, I can't. My high school, my boarding school that I attended, sent me a golf ball that had a big P on it for Principia, which was the name of the school, and asked if I would take that into space. And so when I told my husband, Fred, about it, he got the idea. And so he, from two clubs, golf clubs to which he belongs, he got golf balls from those two golf clubs. One was Highwan Golf Club and one was Sand Hills Golf Club in Mullen, Nebraska. And so I took 3 golf balls up into space.
Wow.
A tennis ball for one of my grandchildren, and a cute little elephant for one of my granddaughters. That sort of stuff is what I took into space. Oh, I took the golf club.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. I didn't have room in my bag because it was only a bag that would hold 2 pounds.
Interesting.
And so I was over the poundage, and I was able, Jeff Bezos gave Fred, my husband, and me a tour of the barn, which is where they build the new Shepard rocket. And as he was finishing up the tour, I asked him if he had room for my golf club. And he did. He snuck it on right that morning. So my replica golf club has been into space.
Wow. And real quick, since we don't have much time left, what would you say is something that you would take away from the experience? What would you say it is? And then what advice would you have for people who want to go to space? Kind of a 2-part short answer question, if you don't mind.
So the first part is what do you
take away from the experience?
The experience that everyone can go into space. There is the opportunity, and there will be an opportunity, and they should go into space to see how beautiful it is, and that we do need to go further into space and travel around in space because we can live there. We are proving it. We are growing food up there, and anybody can go into space. And it's so important to be traveling further and further, especially to Mars.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing was
you pretty much hit it on there about, what advice would you have for, the future of it, which is to keep going farther onto Mars.
Right.
So,
well, I do want to try and encourage women because women are smart.
Dr. Simon Proctor's been on this show of Inspiration 4.
Right. Well, I just want them to know that it is wonderful. And it's a terrific feeling. Plus, you can just do everything that you do on Earth, you can do in space. And women are just as smart as men, and they're very capable. And I just want to encourage them. Yes, I think I told you, when is it? Next Monday or something? There's Women's International Day. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm proud of you for finding somebody.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the Jacob Buehrer Show today. I truly appreciate it.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Look forward to it.